Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of From the Studio. I'm your host, Corey Riggs, here in our MC22 studios in Springfield, and so thankful that you are joining us once again. Since we were here last, we've gone from a stay-at-home order from the city and county to a statewide mandate. Missouri Governor Mike Parson has ordered that public and private schools in the state of Missouri remain closed and that online learning for our children will be in place until the end of the school year. On top of all of that, the CDC is now recommending the wearing of masks or face coverings when we leave our homes. To say that our current situation remains fluid, well, that would be an understatement. But that is why we are here to try and get you information to help during these trying times, and at other times to offer a simple distraction from all of this with conversations about topics that we all enjoy. We have both sides of that coin on the schedule for this episode. Our first guest is part of the great team at the Springfield-Greene County Health Department that is leading the fight locally against COVID-19. I'll be joined by Chief Medical Officer Dr. Nancy Yoon first. Then we'll shift gears and talk about sports at the University of Missouri with the Tiger expert, one of the co-hosts of Tiger Sidelines that can be seen right here on MC22, and the publisher of Power Mizzou, Gabe Darman, will join us a little bit later. If you want to reach out to us to give us topics you'd like to see on the show or guests we should reach out to, send us a message on Twitter at FromTheStudio22. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned. Dr. Nancy Yoon joins us from the studio after this.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Welcome back to From the Studio here on MC22. I am now joined by the Chief Medical Officer for the Springfield-Greene County Health Department. Dr. Nancy Yoon joins us on the show. Dr. Yoon, thank you so much for a little bit of your time today.
All right, my pleasure. Thanks for having me today.
No, well, thank you for making the time. We really appreciate it. We wanted to talk to you this week just because it's now been over a couple of weeks, I believe go back to March 26th. When the stay-at-home order went in effect for Springfield and Greene County. So everybody's kind of gotten used to the new normal, but I think they're kind of maybe starting to forget about what got us to this point, and that being COVID-19, the coronavirus. Can you, as we get started with the interview, give us the basics again on the virus and kind of how we got to this point?
Sure. So the coronavirus, it causes a respiratory illness, and it was first detected in China in December 2019. And it's pretty transmissible very easily between person-to-person contact. The severity can range from asymptomatic or mild, all the way up to requiring hospitalization or ICU care and even death. So it's spread person-to-person through respiratory secretions, which could be from coughs, sneezes, or from what they touch. And there's also evidence that people in the early stages of infection may not have any symptoms yet, but they could still potentially spread the virus to people around them. There's no vaccine or treatment, so everyone is susceptible to becoming infected. And the most common symptoms are fever, shortness of breath, and cough. These will usually appear about 2 to 14 days after having been exposed to COVID-19. Other possible symptoms could be headaches, muscle aches, diarrhea, vomiting, or a change in the ability to smell. And people over the age of 60 and who have other underlying medical conditions such as heart, lung disease, or immunocompromised conditions also need to be aware that they're at higher risk of having more severe if they get COVID-19.
Everybody is, it seems like, on board with the hand washing and the social distancing, or at least they're trying to. How did those two become kind of the top of mind focus for everyone dealing with COVID-19 and trying to make sure you hear everybody from the president to the governor to everybody talking about social distancing and washing those hands as often as you can?
Well, that's just because it's just very transmissible. And so anytime you're within 6 feet of other people, you're at risk if they are coughing, or spreading those infected respiratory secretions, you're at risk if you have direct close contact with them of catching it yourself. So the best ways to prevent it are just to avoid being exposed at all. And if you were to get the virus on you, you want to hand wash for at least 20 seconds and really just try to prevent your exposures as much as possible. If you are sick, anyone who's sick, we want them to stay at home and just avoid that contact with the public. If you do have COVID-19 and live with other people, it's important to just try to limit your contact as much as possible. Avoid sharing things like household items, using your own bathroom, and cleaning around your house very frequently. And another very important thing that people need to consider is avoiding all non-essential travel, because there are a lot of communities where there are a high number of cases where your risk of getting exposed is much higher. A majority of our cases in Springfield have actually been related to travel. This includes international destinations as well as other cities in the US, which have a high number of cases, and even locations in Missouri, like St. Louis and Kansas City. So if you do come back from a high risk area, it's recommended that you quarantine at home for 2 weeks.
Dr. Nancy Yoon is our guest from the Springfield Greene County Health Department, their Chief Medical Officer. Dr. Yoon, the CDC put out a recommendation that I think there's some confusion on regarding masking now. You see some people when you leave your house that are gloved up, masked up, and others that aren't doing that. What were the recommendations really from the CDC, and how should people in and around Southwest Missouri be reacting to those?
So the reason behind the new recommendations was the evidence that people can have COVID-19 even before they develop symptoms. So they could possibly transmit the virus unknowingly to other people around them. And the recommendation is to wear a cloth face covering in public settings where it's difficult to maintain that 6 feet of distance. So things like busy grocery stores or pharmacies. And the cloth face coverings that are recommended are not the surgical masks or N95 respirators, because these really need to be reserved for healthcare workers and other medical first responders, and they're currently in short supply. And it's important to remember that the face coverings are not a substitute for physical distancing and staying at home and the hand washing, but they do provide an additional layer of protection if you need to go out into the public for essential activities. But they can provide a false sense of security if they're not used properly. So they need to fit without any gaps around the face and cover both the nose and the mouth. They need to include multiple layers of fabric while still allowing for breathing without restriction. And they also need to be washed regularly, so after each use. And they need to be removed carefully. So you don't want to touch the front of the mask, and don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth when you're removing it. And then you need to wash your hands right after taking off.
What about the wearing of gloves? My wife is really big right now, especially for whatever reason. She feels like when she goes to the gas station and has to pump gas, or if she goes to the grocery store, it seems like a lot of local businesses have done a great job putting disinfecting wipes out, but some people want to go the extra mile and wear those gloves. What are your feelings on that?
Well, again, the use of gloves could give a false sense of security to the person if they're not used properly. So just like with your hands, if they become contaminated, and then even if you're wearing gloves, if you touch your face or your mouth, you could move the virus from your gloved hands onto your face and then become infected. So you need to change your gloves frequently, anytime they could be contaminated, and then wash your hands. So really the best way is just to wash your hands frequently, and that way you'll physically remove the virus if it's on it.
One of the things that I noticed at the end of the month was there were some charts and graphs put out by different medical professionals in Southwest Missouri that showed the projected number of COVID-19 cases versus the actual number. And I would say, and I'm just doing this from memory, but it was projected somewhere around 190 or so cases by the end of March. The actual number of recorded cases was closer to 70, so that number was more than half of what it was projected to be. Is most of that credited, the control of that number, to the social distancing, the hand washing, and the citywide and countywide shutdown here in Southwest Missouri that we were quick to jump on?
Yeah, that's correct. So the projection to have over 190 cases was if there was no social distancing measures in place. And then with the stay-at-home order, we have seen a lot fewer cases than were initially projected. So we do believe that this shows that the social distancing measures that are in place are working. We've also been very aggressive at the health department in doing contact tracing investigations. This involves communicating with COVID positive patients that they need to stay at home, and also to inform all their contacts to stay home. But it is important to look at this data cautiously, because if we start lifting these social distancing measures too soon, we could see a rebound of cases. So it's something that we're monitoring every day.
One final question, Dr. Yoon. I still think there are people out there on a daily basis that maybe aren't feeling great, maybe have a cough, and are not sure what they should do, when they should pick up the phone, call their doctor, because they think they may or may not be infected with the virus. What's the best advice you can give folks that are at home during this quarantine right now that aren't feeling 100% healthy?
Yeah, so anytime if they're uncertain, I think they should feel willing to reach out to their healthcare provider, and a lot of them are doing virtual visits now, so they don't even have to actually go into the office, but they can talk over their symptoms over the phone, and so I think that's a really good option. If they do have some symptoms that could be COVID-19, or if they've been exposed to someone that is a confirmed positive case, their provider will probably refer them to get tested. And there are, several different ways. Locally, we do have a mobile test site here that is available. So we do have tests available, and we encourage that people get tested so that we can understand the true scope and the number of cases that we have locally. But anytime they have uncertainties, to reach out to their medical providers.
Good advice. Dr. Nancy Yoon joining us from the Springfield-Greene County Health Department. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, thank you so much. And I just want to say that we acknowledge this is a stressful time for everybody. We do appreciate everyone's cooperation, which is making a difference for the health of our families and our community. We all have our part to play in this. If people have the opportunity, it's a great time to show appreciation to healthcare workers, first responders, people in essential businesses, and teachers. And everyone, let's just try to stay positive and remain calm. Be encouraging to people around you, and know this is not going to last forever, and we can all get through this together.
Good advice. Dr. Nancy Yoon joins us. Speaking of showing appreciation, thank you for everything that you're doing with the Springfield-Greene County Health Department, and thank Clay and the rest of the team down there for what they're doing to keep Springfield and Southwest Missouri safe.
All right. Well, yes, it's a great team that we definitely have here. We appreciate also our media partners trying to send out the truth and help people stay as informed as possible.
All right, Dr. Nancy Yoon joins us. We'll be back with more from the studio after this.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe. It's an honor to advocate for Missouri's seniors and veterans, those who have been contributing to our state and nation for generations. Generally, people are good and can be trusted, but in challenging times, some will try to take advantage of our most vulnerable, including seniors and veterans. If you're suspicious, contact our office, ltgov.mo.gov, or Attorney General Eric Schmidt, ago.mo.gov. Join me in protecting those who have helped make our state great.
Welcome back to From the Studio here on MC22. Corey Riggs, now joined by our good friend from Columbia, Missouri, the publisher of Power Mizzou and one of the co-hosts of Tiger Sidelines, which can be seen on this network. Gabe DeArmond joins us now. Gabe, how are you doing today, my friend?
Not bad, Corey. How are you?
You know, I'd say we could be doing a lot worse, so I got no complaints. How hard is it right now to try and generate content for a website with coaches that can't really recruit, travel, and a bunch of games that have all of a sudden been wiped off the schedule?
Yeah, well, right now, this time of year, it's actually not that bad because this is the slow time of year for us anyway. I mean, we don't cover a ton of baseball and softball. We might do it here and there, but this is the time of year where basketball's over. The spring football game should have been last weekend. You know, recruiting, we can still talk to recruits on the phone. We've actually had pretty decent access to coaches. We've had both Jim Sturk, Eli Drinkwitz, and Konzo Martin have all done Zoom calls with us. We've gotten some assistant football coaches, so we're doing some of that. So right now, it's fine. We're going to be okay until and unless football season gets, canceled, moved back, whatever. If they come out July 1st and say, hey, no media days in Atlanta this month and football season's not going to start till at least October 1st, then it's going to start to get a little bit like there's only so long we can go back and talk to former players and talk about old games and things like that.
Well, do you think that availability, are the coaches and the AD Jim Sturk you mentioned, are they normally that readily available to you, or is this kind of pandemic related?
Well, we could get them at times, they do regular conference calls. If this was spring football, the game was supposed to be Saturday, we would have gotten Eli Drinkwitz 6 or 7 times. But right now it's kind of like, yeah, what else did they have to do? I mean, it's good for them to kind of get out there and talk to reporters and remind people, hey, we're still over here doing our thing, all that. So I think it's good PR for them. It gives us content, but like the assistant coaches, we would never be able to do what we're doing with them if this were normal times and they were during spring football. I mean, they're calling us on the phone. We're getting them for 20, 30 minutes at a time and being able to write stories off that. So again, the access is actually somewhat better than it would be if this was a normal April.
Well, let's back up to basketball before we jump into football. Kind of a subpar season by Tiger standards. Konzo Martin, obviously still a very popular coach down here in the southwest corner of the state from his time at Missouri State. But he's got, 2 or 3 players that are thinking about entering the NBA draft, but without agents, so they could come back. Is that just kind of getting to be the par for the course now with some of these players, that they want to hear from the NBA what they need to improve in their last year?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of juniors do this. Mitchell Smith is not going to leave. He's not going to play pro ball next year. Jeremiah Tillman, I think, is most likely coming back. I mean, he's probably not going to be an NBA draft pick. I think he's well served by coming back, playing another year, but he gets to get out and listen to scouts. Honestly, I think the one that Missouri fans probably need to worry about the most is Xavier Pinson. Just a kid that, look, I don't think he would be an NBA draft pick, but in talking to people, there's probably the best chance that he leaves out of the 3. Konzo had tough day on the recruiting trail earlier this week. I mean, Bowling Green grad transfer Justin Turner opted just not to transfer. He just went back to Bowling Green.
And that doesn't happen much right now.
Oh, no. I mean, there are coaches out there. Frank Martin has said this on the record. Once they're in the transfer portal, they're done. They can't come back. I'm not taking them. Because that's an awkward situation to come back and tell guys no, I still love you. I looked around. I dated, but I didn't like them as much as I like you, But then Josh Christopher, who has been Missouri's #1 target really since Caleb Love and Cameron Fletcher went elsewhere, he committed to Arizona State on Monday night. So basically, I mean, look, this is you hate to say it, this is a lost recruiting class for Missouri. I mean, they missed everything in this class. And while that may not hurt them next year, assuming most of these guys come back, they have mostly the same team. They might be okay next year, but after next year, they're losing 6 or 7 guys, and there's not much in the pipeline behind them. So this is a huge year, not only to get back to where Missouri fans think they should be, which is in the tournament, but to maybe give himself a little equity if the year after that is what it looks like it might be right now.
Shifting gears to football now, Gabe. When you look at the hire of Eli Drinkwitz, and obviously it was met with kind of mixed reviews early on, year one of a new football coach's tenure, usually most coaches get a free pass. When you become the head coach in the middle of a worldwide pandemic and you can't go out and recruit, how much time does this maybe buy Mizzou's new head football coach to try and right the ship?
Yeah, I mean, he was already going to get minimum probably 4 years because they're paying him all this guaranteed money. I mean, they're not going to move on from him. Now, they're probably going to have less money to do things. And he is like, I can already see if he goes, and I don't think this is going to happen, but let's say Missouri goes 3-9, 4-8. I mean, the excuse is pre-written. I had 3 spring football practices. I couldn't recruit. I didn't even know who was on my team. I mean, I'm not sure it's an excuse so much as a reason, right? I think this hurts first year coaches more than it does guys who have probably been at their programs a little bit longer, where their players already know everything that's expected of them. I mean, these coaches and players barely even know each other. They've probably met face to face like fewer than 10 times. So, yeah, it's a tough situation. Kind of just a really weird deal for everybody involved, certainly. But first year coaches, I think it probably hits a little harder.
Well, one of a handful of things that is still going forward, albeit adjusted, is the NFL draft. The Mizzou football program had 6 players invited to the NFL Combine before the world went crazy. What is your expectation for how Mizzou will be represented in the draft? Obviously, I think the tight end, Albert O, probably stands at the top of the draft class, right?
Albert O and Jordan Elliott are the 2 guys that there's no question. Those guys are getting drafted. I think they're both anywhere from 2nd to 4th round. Just depends on what team needs what, likes what, all that. So those are going to be the first 2 guys off the board. Tristan Colon Castillo, a guy from down that direction, Webb City, has a shot because center is a weird position. There's not a ton of them. He has a shot to get drafted. I don't know if he will. DeMarcus AC has a shot. Yasir Durant has a shot. Those are all kind of guys that they could go 5th round. They could find themselves undrafted. I don't really know what to expect on any of them. Cale Garrett, I have a hard time seeing him getting drafted. Just coming off the injury and all that. I think he's more a guy that's probably going to have to go the undrafted free agent route. So I think you're looking at anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 draft picks off this team.
You mentioned Tristan Colon Castillo from my alma mater, Webb City High School. He is one of those players that is intriguing. You mentioned it right at the very beginning. Center's kind of an odd position, but with offenses being what they are now, do you think that those 5 guys up front, the offensive linemen, kind of get forgotten now with the quick grab early on the skill positions, especially in this draft that seems to be very wide receiver and tight end deep?
Yeah, they get forgotten by fans, which has nothing to do with offenses. That's just football, right? Like, I mean, fans are disappointed when their team drafts an offensive lineman because, like, there's no highlight tape. I mean, Orlando Pace goes number 1 overall 20 years ago or whatever to the Rams, and I'm sure Rams fans were kind of like, okay, we took a tackle. Well, he's a Hall of Famer and a big reason they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So he gets forgotten by fans, but certainly not by GMs and coaches and the people who do the scouting. I mean, if you look at mock drafts out there, there's probably going to be 5 or 6 offensive linemen taken in the first round of this draft. So there's a lot of them. It's offensive line and wide receiver is where this draft is loaded.
Gabe, one final question for you. Use your crystal ball, your magic 8 ball, whatever you want to look into. Do you think that we have a chance to start the college football season on time and under what we would consider to be normal circumstances?
A chance? Sure, there's a chance. I mean, it's April. I don't want to start writing things off in September. If you ask me, do you think they will? I would say probably not on time. And I've had some conversations with people over the last few days. This whole idea that they can play without fans in the stadium, I don't think that's a thing that'll happen.
Really?
If they can't, I don't see college football playing in empty stadiums. That is so much revenue that these departments lose. I mean, I think they'd rather go to spring than play with nobody in the stadiums,
Wow.
to be quite honest. But again, this is all 5 months down the road. You know, we don't know where we're going to sit on July 1st. I mean, if they can do something even where kids come back to campus in August, they start camp, give them an extra 3 weeks, just push the season back to the first weekend in October, you can do that. That can work. You know, I mean, I'm very confident of two things. If there is a way to play college football, they are going to play college football, right? Regardless of whether that's September, December, or March. Like, they're going to play college football if they can this year. And again, I really don't see the no fans as a thing that is likely at all.
All right. Gabe Darman from Power Mizzou, and hope to see you back soon on Tiger sidelines. Hopefully you and Bo and Dave can get the band back together and have something to talk about when the stay-at-home orders are all lifted.
Yeah, I just hope to be able to go somewhere other than my house and the grocery store at some point. So that's my goals.
Well, it's a good goal to have. Gabe, thanks for the time, man.
All right, Corey, have a good one.
Gabe Darman joining us. We'll be back with more from the studio after this.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Well, that'll just about do it for this episode of From the Studio. Remember, you can follow this show on Twitter at FromTheStudio22, or you can follow me at Corey Riggs TV. Please feel free to send us questions, guest or topic ideas, take part in our online polls, and more. I wanted to end this show with a story. Until the stay-at-home order took effect and local businesses began to close their doors temporarily, I don't think I ever gave much thought to how often I needed or wanted to get a haircut. I get mine done by a young lady named Rebecca. She's cut my hair for a few years now. Her business was one of those that was deemed non-essential, so she went home and began waiting this out like so many of you are doing right now. She could have just put her feet up and worked her way through her DVR until she caught up on every TV show she'd missed out on over the last couple of months, but she didn't. Instead, she watched the news, saw the shortage of masks and face coverings. She knew the high-end manufacturer's masks needed to go to medical professionals, and you can't find them anywhere right now. So she also knew that there were people that needed something to protect themselves and others. There are people giving out food each day right now, like our friends at the Boys and Girls Clubs of Springfield, and they need to protect themselves and others. So she started sewing masks to the tune of 20 or 30 the first day till she ran out of elastic. So she got more and went back to work again. Then she ran out of fabric, and lo and behold, someone dropped some fabric on her doorstep, and Rebecca resumed her work. Not the work she does every day to pay the bills, but the work that we all should be doing right now, trying to help our friends and neighbors in whatever way we can. Picking up groceries for someone who can't or shouldn't get out of the house, or making masks for friends or family, or for the people that make sure that kids are getting a good meal every day. Thank you, Rebecca, for being such a great person in the middle of this crazy mess. You can find her on Facebook at Becca the Barber. Maybe send her a thank you. We'll get through this together with people like her lending a helping hand. I want to give a big thank you to our guest today, Dr. Nancy Yoon from the Springfield-Greene County Health Department, and our friend Gabe Darman from Power Mizzou. Until next time, for our MC22 crew, I'm Corey Riggs saying so long from the studio.